Thank you for coming in today. Let's start with a tough one. Can you tell me about a time when you failed and how you handled it?
Certainly. A few years ago, I was leading a project that was supposed to be completed in 3 months. However, due to some miscommunication within the team and unclear timelines, we missed the deadline. I took full responsibility and immediately organized a meeting to analyze what went wrong. I learned the importance of setting clear expectations and communicating more frequently. Afterward, I implemented a new system where we had weekly check-ins and used project management tools more effectively. The next project we did was completed ahead of schedule, and the team felt more aligned.
Interesting. Now let's dive deeper. How do you handle situations where your team doesn't agree with your vision or approach?
I believe that every team member's perspective is valuable. If there's a disagreement, I first try to understand the root cause. Is it a matter of miscommunication or lack of clarity? I listen to all sides, and then I try to reach a compromise that aligns with the core objectives of the project. I don't shy away from revising my approach if I see a better solution. The goal is collaboration, not authority. In the end, I make sure everyone feels heard and respected.
That's a good approach. Next question. What would you say is your biggest weakness, and how are you working to improve it?
My biggest weakness has been my tendency to overthink decisions. Early in my career, I would analyze situations for too long, seeking the perfect solution, which slowed things down. However, I've learned that being decisive is often more important. I've been working on trusting my instincts more and setting clear deadlines for decisions, which has helped me become more efficient. I also seek feedback from colleagues to ensure I'm not missing anything important.
All right. Final question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I see myself growing into a leadership role. I want to continue expanding my skill set, particularly in strategic planning and team development. My goal is to contribute significantly to the company's growth and be someone who mentors others, sharing the knowledge and insights I've gained over the years.
Great. Thank you for your time today. You've provided thoughtful answers.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the questions and the chance to share my experiences.
Let's talk about challenges. Can you give an example of how you've handled a particularly stressful situation at work?
Absolutely. One instance that comes to mind was when I was managing a project with a tight deadline, and the client requested significant changes halfway through. It put a lot of pressure on the team, and the stress was mounting. I called a team meeting to assess the situation. I reassured everyone, broke the tasks down into smaller, manageable chunks, and delegated accordingly. We worked long hours, but we delivered on time, and the client was happy. The experience taught me the importance of staying calm under pressure and the value of clear communication in managing stress.
You've shown good problem-solving skills. But tell me, how do you prioritize your tasks when faced with multiple urgent deadlines?
I always start by assessing the impact of each task on the project or company. I use a priority matrix, considering deadlines, importance, and resources available. I then break everything down into small, actionable steps and focus on the highest priority items first. It's essential to remain flexible, though, as priorities can shift unexpectedly. For instance, if an urgent task requires my attention, I reevaluate and adjust my plan accordingly.
That sounds like a solid approach. Here's another difficult one. Can you describe a situation where you had to work with someone you didn't get along with? How did you manage it?
Yes, I once worked with a colleague who had a very different working style than mine, and we didn't always see eye to eye. However, I recognized that to succeed, we needed to collaborate. I took the initiative to have a one-on-one conversation with them, to understand their perspective and communicate my own. We agreed to focus on the project's goals and find common ground. Over time, our communication improved, and we ended up achieving our targets together. It taught me that understanding.
Good, you're showing a lot of emotional intelligence. Now, imagine we ask you to innovate on a current process or product at this company. How would you approach that?
First, I would start by understanding the current process thoroughly. I'd review data, talk to team members, and gather insights from customers or stakeholders. After that, I'd look for areas where improvements can be made, whether through technology, automation, or simply changing workflows. I would then propose solutions with clear benefits, such as cost savings or enhanced user experience. But most importantly, I'd test the new ideas in small pilots before fully implementing them to ensure they're effective and well-received.
Great. One final curveball. Why should we hire you over other candidates with similar qualifications?
What sets me apart is my ability to not only deliver results, but also create an environment where collaboration and growth are prioritized. I am passionate about both the big picture and the small details. I've consistently taken on challenges outside of my immediate role to help teams achieve success. I am committed to ongoing personal development, and I bring a mindset of continuous improvement. I'm confident I can bring fresh perspectives and contribute to the success of your team.
All right, let's move to a more technical question. How do you handle ambiguity in a project, especially when you don't have all the details up front?
When faced with ambiguity, my approach is to break down the project into its components and focus on what is known. I try to clarify any uncertain areas by reaching out to stakeholders or team members for more information. In some cases, I create hypotheses based on the information available and test them early to see if they hold true. I also make sure to communicate any risks or gaps in knowledge to the team and management so everyone is aligned. I believe in staying flexible, being resourceful, and using agile methods to adapt as new information comes in.
That's a very strategic way of approaching uncertainty. Now, tell me about a time you had to make a tough decision without having all the data you needed. How did you go about it?
I was once leading a marketing campaign, and we had to decide whether to go ahead with a new strategy despite limited customer feedback. We had enough data to show potential, but not enough to be 100% certain. After consulting with my team and considering the risks, I decided to move forward, but with a contingency plan in place. I set clear metrics to monitor the campaign closely, and made sure we had a way to pivot quickly if things didn't go as expected.
Great decision-making. Moving on, how do you handle conflict within a team, especially when it involves strong personalities or differing opinions?
I've worked with diverse teams, and I've learned that conflicts often arise from misunderstandings or miscommunication. When dealing with strong personalities, I focus on active listening, ensuring everyone feels heard. I address the root cause of the disagreement and encourage a solution-oriented discussion. I also emphasize the importance of the team's shared goals, reminding everyone why we're working together. I encourage collaboration and suggest compromises.
Nice, it sounds like you focus on maintaining harmony. Let's shift gears a bit. Imagine you've been working on a project for months, and suddenly your manager changes the direction completely. How would you handle this?
I'd take a step back and try to understand the reasoning behind the shift. Change in direction can often be driven by new information or evolving company priorities, so I'd ask questions to get clarity on the new vision. If I still have concerns about the new direction, I'd express them in a constructive way, offering potential solutions or alternatives. However, I understand that change is inevitable, and I would focus on how to best align the team with the new objectives. Adaptability is key, and I'd work to ensure a smooth transition without compromising the quality of the work.
Let's talk about failure again, but this time, more specifically. Can you describe a time when you took on a project you thought you could handle but ended up struggling? What did you learn from it?
I once volunteered to lead a project that seemed straightforward, but I underestimated the complexity of the task and the resources it would require. I ended up overburdening myself by not asking for help early enough. The project fell behind schedule, and I realized I had to adjust my approach. I learned two key lessons: the importance of setting realistic expectations and the value of involving the right stakeholders from the beginning. After that, I made sure to delegate more effectively and ask for support when needed, which made a huge difference in subsequent projects.